at some point I just made up my mind, whether we build one or 1,000 of them, it's going to be the best one, right? I mean, that was my whole mindset. And there's just so much that went into getting all these dies made and making it different and doing different formulas so that it's shinier, and there was just a ton of stuff that goes into it, and I didn't want it pieced together. I wanted every component to have a place. I wanted it to fit something else rather than just mitering everything all the time. And I didn't use any 1x1 tube. I thought it was too weak. Still do to this day. Sorry people, but I do. Because here's what I don't like about a lot of industries is I don't like the fact that people are willing to make decisions based on price for your customer. I feel like that ought to be the customer's option, right? Not the manufacturer. And so I thought, well, I might be way too high in the market, and that was just another part of it. But I knew that I needed to have satisfaction in the product.
The Converse Cowboy journey has given me an opportunity to sit down with some amazing performers that are living the Western lifestyle, where it is my job to tease out their habits and routines so that you can apply and test yourself in your own life. I've learned, I've grown personally, I've been enlightened, and I've been humbled. Above all, I realize that there is no destination in this life, no goal achieved or money made that can replace the feeling of flow and the pursuit of doing what you love to do. With a growth mindset, I'm constantly asking questions and pursuing knowledge. The Converse Cowboy is a platform that allows me to do just that. I'm excited and eager to share their stories with you all. I'm Mike Roberts. This is the Converse Cowboy. Brought to you by Kerry Kelly Bits and Spurs and Schaefer Outfitter.
Here today in Salado, Texas, and I'm super grateful to be sitting down with Randy Bloomer. Bloomer's Trailers. Let me back that up. Bloomer Trailers. If anybody has been around horses of any discipline, if you've been down the road, you've been to a show, cutting horse, roping, rodeo, you know the name Bloomer Trailer. And so I'm very grateful to sit down with you today. We toured through your shop a little bit ago, and very impressive to see the operation that you have in place here. You got welding, you got a bunch of moving metal and pieces out there, but I would probably eat off the floor in your shop. You have it so clean out there, and so it was really cool to see that. And we don't have enough time, and we could sit here for 8 hours, and we don't have enough time to hear your full story, but I want to hear a glimpse of where you started, the process along the way, where you're at today, and then what's next for Bloomer Trailer. And also for the listeners, I know there's a lot of folks out there that would love to hear your story. So again, I'll start by saying thank you. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
So we'll go back to 1998, and I'll somewhat start there. And in doing the research on you, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, kind of digging into your backstory a little bit and hearing what really even started this thing, Bloomer Trailer, and it seems like it somewhat bred out of necessity, right? Like you were running your own trailer dealership at the time. Things weren't quite where you thought they should be with the trailers. You couldn't get what you needed, and so you said, to hell with it, I'll just start my own. Is that loosely accurate?
That's really accurate, actually. So you just cut out like a third of what I needed to say, so thank you for that. What I said was, I'll tell you what, everything you just said was true. It was out of necessity, and it stemmed from just an event that happened to me. I was fortunate enough to be able to sell in a lot of those trailers, right? So you kind of get out there so far, and you can't get any more. And it's like, wow, this is not good. So I didn't really know what to do. So I thought, well, I'll go to the source. And I went to this manufacturer, and I sat down just like we're sitting here, and had the owners and the reps, and I just spilled it out for them. But I also had the solution that I thought might work. I wasn't selling any small trailers. I felt like the trend was going toward living quarters trailers. And so it wasn't a big thing then like it is today. And I thought, well, shoot, you got all these allocations. It was fairly gluttonous at that time. I mean, you couldn't build enough aluminum trailers to even supply the market. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, you've got these guys over here, you're allocated this, and this, and this, and this. if you let me have their allocations of stuff they don't sell, I'll let them have all these other things that I don't sell. And so if I can take theirs, they can have mine, and and they'd be fine with it. I'd be fine with it, and there we'd go. We could go on. Well, I don't know. We don't really do that. I'm not going to be crass here. I'm just going to say that what I went in looking for was businessmen telling me what to do. I was looking for a solution. I didn't have the knowledge to even know how to do that. Give me some kind of plan so I can get past these 3 months of nothingness,
Yeah.
Can I take on another brand? No, we don't allow that. Okay. Can you give me these allocations? No, we can't do that. And so, and I said, as I've said in the past on other things, I said, they spend 30 minutes stroking you because I was young and they were telling me that I was the face of the company and going forward, and they're just tickled to death to have me. And so that's the way it started. So I led into that. And at the end of the day, so to speak, at the end of the conversation, been there a few hours, and I said, so tell me what if you were in my shoes, what you would do. Just like if I asked you, what would you do? You're looking for any kind of answer, it doesn't matter. And I'll never forget, it's just like yesterday, they looked at each other and said, I don't know what I'd do. I'm like, do what?
Helpless feeling, right?
I was, you learn nothing. So I leave and I go to the airport, call my wife, didn't have cell phones then, thank you very much, and called her from a payphone at the airport, and I was pretty upset. I was kind of distraught, actually. I was like, what am I going to do now? So anyway, long story short, she said, well, what are you going to do? I just asked them that question and got nothing. It's probably just ego a little bit and being pissed off, and disappointed. And I said, we're going to build our own. I'm going to kick their ass. And my wife, who doesn't cuss, said, oh, shit. Because, I was determined. So on that flight home, I started writing down ideas, and my horse, I went to a roping in Fort Worth, a quarter show, and at the same evening they had one in Baton Rouge, a U.S. roping. And so this story seems so old to me, but I left there that day after roping, had a guy with me. We went down there, and they didn't have rotations then, so you were up about 2 o'clock in the morning, interlast a rope type deal. And we get down there and we get finished and coming back to Texas, and stopped at a truck stop, just normal stuff, and just looked in there at the horses, and I noticed that my good horse there was just blood smeared on the manger pan. And I'm like, oh man, what's going on here, So we unload him, I go in there, I look, and his gums are just toast, the bottom of his lip. I'm like, I don't get this, So anyway, the manger pans were so high back then, they were just kind of built for every horse. There really was, and horses change, as they evolve every decade they do. And I've said this a lot of times to people, but you can't build, if you're going to build a trailer that fits every horse, then you need to know what that horse is, how much room does he need, how much is too much so your big horse can't step in the pan, all these things, and you put all that into play. And I felt like I had a good mix. And so I called him. I called him the next day, that was Saturday. I called him on Monday. I kind of told him the situation, and I said, I think it would behoove everybody if we made these changes. Oh, well, we've been this way for a long time. And I'm like, God, how can you in good faith sell this to, at that time, a cutter that was 14.2, 14.1, whatever, same as my heel horse, and get him to believe you if you don't believe it yourself.
Right.
And that kind of started the trend of going up there then and talking to him. And I'll tell you this, everything that I had written on that paper, I did on the very first trailer we got. And that's a fact. And it was all because if you listen to the horse people, they'll be more than happy to tell you what works and what doesn't. You might get 400 opinions, but I'll promise you that the bulk of them are going to be pretty close to the same answer.
Right.
And if you're willing to listen and change, then you'll nail it. And I feel like we're on spot right now with where we should have been then.
Yeah, right on. How long did you have that dealership? How many years did you work there?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. And then I still had it when I hired my first guy. I knew there was 3 guys in the industry that would be able to take us to the next, to take us from startup, really, because not having manufacturing experience, there's a lot, you know. And I thought, well, there's 3 guys, and first guy comes in and he turns me down, and the second guy comes in and I told him my vision. He turned me down. So I either got to change my vision or I got to do something because they're not buying into it, you know. And
what's going through your head, though? I'm curious to know that. Like, what's going through your head as because I've heard this story somewhere before. Like, you kind of wined and dined those first guys, right?
I did.
To a nice place. And what's going through your head, though, after that first rejection and then the second rejection? Are you like, man, am I crazy? Or?
I could tell you exactly what happened. What happened with my third guy that came in. And it wasn't in any particular order I wanted him in. It was just he happened to be the last one. And I took him to Denny's right out of the airport. I didn't put him up for the night. I didn't do nothing. I took him in there, and I thought, I ain't wasting any more money. I'm on a shoestring budget anyway, you know. I'd sold all my cows, my horses, everything to live on for a year, basically, you know. And so he kind of bought into it. He made me guarantee him some money, and I thought, I'll guarantee whatever you want, but if you don't do your job, I'm not going to have any money to feed you, you know. And he did. He bought into it, and I had it drawn on a napkin. And those guys they're not real great visionaries, okay? They're great at what they do. They really are, and they're a vital necessity to a manufacturing company. But it's not like going to a marketing person. It's, you know, if I came to you and I said, what do you think about this? It would be something that you would say, I think it's got credence, or, you know what, I don't get it, but, you know, whatever. He didn't really fall in love with anything I was doing. You know, he asked me about the head shields at that time, and I wanted the head shields to be, everybody had the straight bars and stuff, and I wanted them to be slanted, and I wanted Alcoa aluminum wheels on every trailer and all these things, and he just couldn't understand why I'd need that. And I said, well, because it's the best. And he said, well, why do you want those slanted bars? It takes twice as long to build them. And I said, because they look fast setting still. I mean, they're cool.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing people see every time is how cool is it, right? The trailer's got to look good. But the best part about him was the fact that the guts part of it, he was very good at. Like, I wanted it strong. I wanted it to go 1,000,000 miles plus, you know. And again, during this time, you got to understand, I'm getting backlash from all the other manufacturers and their salespeople and their dealerships talking smack.
What were they upset about?
Well, they want you to fail, you know, because you disrupted the system. You know, you're supposed to kowtow to those guys, and you're not supposed to step out of line. You know, you're supposed to, they're the best, and okay, then why are you? You know, and so if you learn what questions you wanted to ask them and you infiltrated in your business so that when you're asked those questions, you have a logical answer, learned a lot from them. But every time they would do that, it just made me more determined. You know, I took it as a competition. I said, okay, well, you better get your game face on because I'm coming.
Yeah.
It sounds really tough, but again, this is a process, right?
Well, yeah, I think you have to. Like, there has to be some type of trigger. Anybody that I have ever sat down with or that I've met that is either performing at an elite level or an entrepreneur who has a very successful business, there's something a little bit different. There's a trigger in there there's a switch that goes off, and it's like a competition, whether it's with yourself or whether it's with a competitor. And I think that's what sets the greats apart from just the goods or the average, you know, who do just kind of fall in line. And which is bold, right? To do what you were doing, to kind of step out of the box and to start creating these trailers that were strong, they were durable, and have some style to them, right? That seemed to be different. I wasn't around this world at that time, but in doing the research, I was born. I just wasn't. When I say that world, I mean like the horse world. I wasn't into horses yet. But looking back on that stuff, it's like the Bloomer name. It sets itself apart, right? It's like the Cadillac or the Prevost, and I'm gonna say Prevost instead of Prevo because I think you have to own a Prevost to say it like Prevo, right?
Yeah.
It's like the best of the best,
Right.
You know, and that's a bold slogan that you guys have, only the best.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's one of those things you put it out there, you're gonna back it up,
Fact.
right?
Fact.
So let's talk about that a little bit, Randy. Like getting started, those early days. You go to Vegas for the first time. You bring that first trailer that you make up there. What's going on inside your head? Are you worried about getting orders? Are you worried about what people are going to think? What's the internal chatter?
Everything you just said and more. You know, you never know. You know you've done your due diligence. You know, and at some point I just made up my mind whether it be build one or 1,000 of them, it's going to be the best one, right? I mean, that was my whole mindset. And there's just so much that went into getting all these dies made and making it different and doing different formulas so that it's shinier, and there was just a ton of stuff that goes into it, you know. And I didn't want it pieced together. You know, I wanted every component to have a place. I wanted it to fit something else rather than just mitering everything all the time. And you know, I didn't use any one but one tube. I thought it was too weak. Still do to this day. Sorry, people, but I do. Because here's what I don't like about a lot of industries is I don't like the fact that people are willing to make decisions based on price for your customer. I feel like that ought to be the customer's option, right? Not the manufacturer. And so I thought, well, I might be way too high in the market, you know, and that was just another part of it. But I knew that I needed to have satisfaction in the product because my standards are high. They were high. And I just wanted the decision to be made on the people. Just because you think it's too expensive, I can't base my business on that because maybe I'm not for everybody. I don't know. I'd like to be, but maybe I'm not.
Right.
But I certainly want somebody to aspire to want one someday, you know, because a lot of youngsters, they can't go buy a $108,000 trailer, right? But it doesn't mean when they're 35 they can't.
Right.
So you just keep doing what you do and put the best in there and then let the chips fall where they may at that point.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So that was, I don't know if I even answered your question, but the points were there were so many things I was concerned about. But my Cowboys kind of came to the rescue, the horse people I knew, and I got so busy I literally was making appointments for people. Didn't have a quote sheet. Didn't have an order sheet. So I was drawing them at night, the layouts by hand, you know, and it was exhausting. That was exhausting 10 days. But we left with 20 orders. And it was, then the follow-up, whatever it takes you to sell someone something, the follow-up is twice as much. So for 2 months straight. And I'll tell you that, like the plant manager, I'll tell you the difference in their thinking. When I was leaving, I was at the airport, and actually I wasn't at the airport, I was at my hotel because I drove out there. I took that trailer out there, as you know. And I called him and he said, how'd it go? I said, it went good. You know, I'm tired, but it's good. Got 20 orders, and he said, we can't build 20 trailers. That was his first reaction. I thought, that's not the answer I was wanting from you, you know. And so, but we learned to adapt together, you know, and we argued left and right constantly. I'd want to change something. Like today, if I saw something better over there that we put in play here in the CAD system and we draw it and we get it built, it goes in then. It doesn't wait. I'm not going to use up all this stuff that I know is not better. I'm going to infiltrate that, right? So it's real time. I don't have to go for a board. I don't have to do any of that stuff. Yeah. If it's better, it's better. You know.
So what was the setup then, right? You go to Vegas, you get these 20 orders, you got to build them. Like who and how many people were on staff at that time?
I think I had 7. 7 or 11. I can't remember which. But I had, I think 7.
Right on.
That's a lot, isn't it?
I'm gonna read. I've got a few quotes here that I found that you said either in an interview or that I found in an article somewhere. But you said, and I think this one was actually from a phone call that you and I had just a few weeks ago, and we talked for a little bit. And you said, "I wish I had a me when I was growing up." And I thought that was so cool because I think about that myself, because my parents they have jobs, just 9-to-5 jobs. So they're great parents, but middle class. And so here I am on this other like entrepreneur trajectory, like going this different route. And I didn't have really anybody other than myself and the people that I would seek out. And I know for you, you grew up with a single mother out in Odessa, Texas, and didn't really know your dad till you were 14, 15 years old, right?
Right.
So I'm curious to know what, like I don't know what my perception of what you said was, but I'm curious to know what you meant by that.
Well, if you have somebody that, like my kids do, that you can save them so many pitfalls, and it teaches you stuff about life. I tell my kids and all my youth pro team too, I said, look, you just got to understand, every day you get up, life tries to beat you down. There'll be something every single day. So you got to find your parameters, what line you won't cross, your core values, and establish them at an early age. So if you have the core values that and you follow the procedure in your life, you can ignore and not even ever see a lot of the dangers out there. I didn't. I was always gung-ho about whatever I was doing. It didn't matter. And so I was a decent judge of character, but sometimes when you want something so bad, you'll kind of relax those standards a bit. And it always winds up bad. It just always does. And so what I meant by I wish I had me was the fact that I've been there and done it. And I've shielded off all the barbs that were thrown, the arrows shot at me and all this stuff. And it made me stronger as a person, more confident, but nobody wants to see their kids have to go through all that.
Right.
You like to help them leapfrog up the ladder a little bit.
Right.
So that's what I meant by that.
Yeah. And it does, like that can expedite our personal growth, right? It can help, having those people around us can help us realize dreams that we didn't even know were possible.
Right.
So I'd like to know, like, who were some of those people early on for you that may have helped you out, gave you some good advice, gave you some bad advice? Like, I'd like to know those two answers. I'll start with that. Who were some influential people early on, and what was some advice they gave to you once you decided, I'm going to do this Bloomer trailer thing?
I can tell you, pops into my mind. There's two people that pop into my mind right off the bat. One of them is when I lived in Oklahoma for a while. When I had an opportunity to run a Chevrolet dealership. And I had this friend of mine named Greg Wilde. His family owned a dealership for years. And he kept on me all the time. I was shooting horses at the time. And he's like, man, you're wasting your talent, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I'm not wasting my talent. I'm not going to be a used car salesman. Back then the persona I had was a guy in a checkered suit saying, hey, come on in. I didn't want any part of it. There's nothing cool about what you do, Greg. He said, just give it a chance. He said, I'm telling you. I said, all right. So I did. I went to work for him, and we did well. I sold all trucks. I never sold a car. He's like, look, you need to sell cars too. And I said, I don't know anything about cars. I don't want to do it. Yeah. He said, fine, keep doing what you're doing. It's working. But the thing that Greg did for me was, and with Chevrolet, he'd send me to these meetings, and I mean, I dressed just like I do now. And so I'd go into these meetings, and all these Dallas dealers would be there, and the bigger dealerships, and they would totally snub you, basically, because who's this hick, But then they'd read the results, and we'd just spank them pretty good, and stuff. And that's how people are, it's they love to follow, right? I mean, they just do. And so these guys, the first day I was totally uncool, and you tell one of them to kiss your ass. The next thing you know, they're all dressed a little different the next day, right? And so it was eye-opening. And so all these series of events that happened, I'm like, you start learning people and the mental part of it. And Greg was so positive, very positive guy. And man, it just bled into me.
And it's contagious, right?
Yeah, he's passionate about it. And so he was the first guy, really. And then, so he said there's a great opportunity to run this dealership up there. And I said, man, Oklahoma, I didn't really want to go back there. But the people were nice, and I did. And then the war broke out, and all their contracts were with Army base up there. So all those went away, and the next thing I'm knowing, like, are we sinking here? He's like, yes. I'm like, oh, man. And he wound up shutting it down, I'm like, that was good, and we were so broke we couldn't get out of Oklahoma. There was a rancher there that I'd met and befriended. He was old at that time, he's since passed away, but he wanted I needed something to do. Kim had just gotten pregnant. So all this stuff, and I'm like, God. That was the first experience really where it was just, if you had Randy Bloomer, then every heading underneath it would have been sucked worse. I mean, I was like, where's the ending of this thing now? Now we're going to have a baby? And so.
And how old were you at this time?
I was, I would have been 30.
Okay.
30. Somewhere in there. I think 30, yeah. Let's say 30.
Yeah.
And so, well, I was 29. So, because I was 30. Simple math. Tell me, do it. Do the
I'm
math.
from Louisiana. We don't do math that good.
Good. So, as far as we're concerned, 29.
Yeah.
But I was 29, and I did have some decent horses, and so he hired me he had some wheat pasture calves, and up there he had a couple thousand acres in this bottom, and they're turned out, but they were getting this clay in between their toes, and every day that's what I did. I'd go out there and I'd rope them, and I had horses stand on the end of the rope, and they weren't going anywhere because they could barely walk because that stuck in between their. And so that's what I did. I took a hammer and screwdriver, and I did that, and I thought this is going to be so cool for about 3 weeks, and then it got cold. Mm-hmm. It's like, this cowboy stuff is ain't all it's cracked up to be, and my wife said, you need to call Sooner Trailers. They're right there by where I was at. And I'd met the owner at that dealership. And so I called randomly and said, hey, if you ever need any help doing this, and brought me in for an interview and hired me that day. And so I stayed there for 9 months till I got that dealership down there. Felt like I needed to get out of Oklahoma. But the guy, I found out, this rancher guy, he really couldn't afford to even pay me. He was just a good man. Mm-hmm. Saw a kid that maybe had something on the ball and wanted to do something with it, and he just helped me. And he called me one day after I got this started. It was probably 5 years later. And he called, and I was happy to hear from him. He said, hey, I saw one of your trailers go by today. I was like, yes, sir. And he said, I just wanted to remind you, if you, no matter how much success you have, if you raise a couple of dumbass kids, you've done none of us any service, and hung up. Good to see you, Johnny. Good talking to you, I mean, but man, you talk about hitting it right between the eyes, because we were getting on a little roll right there, right? And it's like, okay. So, but if you put Greg and him together, where would I have been? Still shooting horses? I don't know. Right. But they made me realize I had something else in me, and I was always passionate about whatever I was doing. So I think sometimes it's just, good Lord sends people your way to learn that about yourself. Mm-hmm. And not to say I didn't fail after that some, but I'm just saying I never forgot those guys.
Right.
Never will. There is no such thing as a self-made man, period. There's just not.
Right.
Any of you CEOs out there, I mean, you're full of shit. because there is always somebody that elevates you. I don't know what it is or who it is, but there's just no such thing.
Yeah, you either learn what to do from those people or you learn what not to do, but somehow you were being influenced.
Absolutely.
By someone else.
It takes people to buy them. You know, it takes people to manufacture them. You can have all the vision you want and go broke doing it. I mean, it takes a network of people, you know, and that's one thing I did have in my favor is I knew a lot of people. And I was true to what I'd tell them I'd do, you know. And
right.
I don't know where all that came from because I wasn't raised that way. I think probably the most part, Greg showed me there was another way to act instead of just react, you know, and use your brain. And
well, that's something I want to segue from there because I'm interested to know, like, you didn't have a business degree as far as I know, like from college or anything, like School of Hard Knocks. And I want to know, like, how did you learn the business side? How did you learn the systems that you started putting in place to build trailers? Yeah, you ran a trailer dealership and you really knew trailers, but you never had built one before, right? So
right.
It takes balls. That's bold to go out and do that. How did you learn that? It's like boots on the ground, like you're in it, doing it, kind of figuring it out as you're going. Like
the key to that is you always hire people smarter than you. You know, and if you people understand leadership, if you're passionate about it, if you're letting them know that, hey, you're just as important as me in this deal. I'm no good without you, and you have to instill that in them and make them believe it. And you have to believe it yourself. You know, I didn't, but you learn. You've got people that are either customers or a partner in this or whatever it is, and you just learn it. You know, if you'd have told me I could go in QuickBooks and learn how to track the finances of this company and how to find the answers I'm looking for in just raw data, I'd have thought you was crazy. You know, I mean, this guy from Louisiana is just full of it. But it's just something I think you look at what is necessary for me to know, and then you go find that answer, whatever it is. And if you look hard enough, you can always find somebody willing to teach you. And that's what I did. And because I didn't have the background of it. And to be quite honest with you, I would hate to go build one of these trailers, and my design, it'd be hard for me to go build it. I mean, it'd take me 3 months to build a show, you know?
Right.
Because it's really just not my thing.
Yeah.
You know, I could, but it's like I tell those guys, if I want to do that, why do I need you? You know?
What was it that made you name the company after your last name?
I hated it. I was listening to outside sources on that, and it made sense because I had a good business as far as a retail business with trailers. So I had that, and I had those customers, and a couple guys are saying, man, you got to tie it into that so those customers all know, because you couldn't touch a key on your phone today and send an alert to 100,000 people. You just couldn't do it. So it was all print advertising and all this, and depending on who got that print advertising and how you're going to reach coast to coast, it's just almost impossible.
Right.
You know. And so it takes those networking guys, and what I did different was I put people on the road in trailers, like some of the Cowboys, for example, and Jake and Clay and Rich and Speed and at that time T and on and on. And those guys would go the summer run, and I'd see people all over people would get to see it from the West Coast, Northwest, North, East.
Yeah.
So it was a good way to do that, is to get them on the road. And of course I heard I was stupid for doing that too, because the Cowboys don't have no money. That's all I ever heard. You know what? They're pretty resourceful. I feel like if they need something, they're going to find it.
Right.
I'll take my chances. You just stay away from it.
So, in building all of this company that you built, again, very recognizable name, but I read that you would spend hundreds of miles going down the road testing noise levels, vibration, airflow, for the safety of your customers and for the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard of anybody else doing that with any other company.
They're smarter than I am, probably. I did do that, but I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, this trailer's just not pulling right," or it seems like it's wobbling, or I'm not getting any airflow in the second stall, or whatever it is, there's only really one way to do it, in my opinion. You can sit there and tweak stuff here and there, but once you get in the back of it, you realize a couple of things. First of all, this ride is not good enough. It needs to be more cushion. Second thing is you got to tweak your window design and your top row design, because all that comes into play. Mm-hmm. The radius of your nose comes into play. All these things, a lot of people were using a 5-inch nose, and I used a 12 because I needed that air to come out there and flow in there. If I can get in the first stall, I can get in all the stalls. And so that's what we did on this evolution is we started with these windows. And originally I had a little wing, that you can open up. And like the old cars in the old days, open that wing for ventilation. And that didn't work. I mean, I busted, I don't know how many of those windows, because I'd touch that latch and the wind was so strong, just swam, and just send stuff everywhere. But from that, I figured out that the centerpiece on those windows is important. And you can use that, to your advantage. And so we started redesigning and getting with our nose and our top rail, and we figured out how to get it towards. You're going to have on top the roof vents. You've got an AC up there. You've got a satellite dish up there. You have all these interruptions. So getting air in the trailers, I told them that the best times to use those vents is open them backwards in the winter. That's when they work the best, because the draw pulls air out.
Yeah.
It doesn't blow it in unless you don't have anything on the front. Mm-hmm. And of course that was taboo. We took the vents out. I said we took the vents out, but you got an 18-inch pod. Okay, so you got 18-inch insulation there. You got a 2-inch roof that's insulated, and you got airflow. They're a lot cooler than they would be without it, right?
Right.
To me, it's common sense. But anyway, I did ride, I don't know how many miles. I've been asked that question a lot. I never really thought about it. My daughter brought all that up. And I know just on one trailer alone, I know we went 75 miles. But what we do, the only way to really test them is you try to make a change, right? Small change. You go the same route, same speed. You got to make sure the wind's blowing the right direction every time you do it, right? And then you collect that data. And once you collect that data, you'll figure out in the middle somewhere there where it is, what it is, and then you correct that problem. But if you don't ever test it, you send it back to the customer, it does the same thing or worse. That's a phone call you don't want to get.
Right.
So yeah, I figure that's the least I can do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it sucks, no doubt. Especially if shavings in there, you get out of there and you look like you've jumped in a shavings bin. It's bad, and I make my guys go with me too. I do. We all are in it together, so we all share in the.
Well, yeah, you share in the evolution,
right?
What you named those trailers, right? Because you are continuing to evolve. I'd like to know, where does that confidence come from to step out there and do things a little bit different, outside of the box, and take the criticisms from others in the industry and still go forward with what you think's best?
It comes from 100% belief in what you're doing. If people are smart, they're going to figure out if you're doing it for strictly foo-foo financial gain or if it has credibility. I don't have anything on there that doesn't have purpose. Could I make it? The easiest part of a trailer is making it look good. I've used Alcoa wheels from day one. And I use Continental tires, because they're the best. I use hydraulic disc brakes, and they're great now. They were terrible when we started because they were brand new. And if you're willing to throw your head on the chopping block, people don't think about when you're loaded going down the road, you're weighing 14 tons. 14 tons, that's a lot, right? Why would you scrimp on tires and brakes? I don't understand that concept, right? So I want to make dang sure that the hitch on the truck compared to the tires and that's on the ground, I want them to be rated more than I need, because that's if they fail, you got nothing. You have 14 tons to try to move with something. You know?
Yeah.
The hardest part is stuff that's out of your control, the third party stuff. It'll keep you up at night. You know, you can't control their quality issues, and so it's always frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got living quarters that we don't do, and you got axles we don't do, and tires we don't do. It's frustrating sometimes, but it's all Bloomer, right? So everybody just calls us, and my water heater's not working. There ain't a soul in here who can tell you how to fix it, I promise you. I promise you. If you got a wiring issue in your air conditioner, let me transfer you to next door or whatever.
Right.
My guys aren't those guys, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be those guys.
So you've been at this thing a long time, and I know I'll speak for myself. Like early on, starting a business, like I had this grind mentality, like you just go get it, you know. Over the years, like how do you maintain? Because walking through that shop today, I could feel the energy and the passion you still have for what you're doing. Like how do you keep that grind mentality to keep going, to keep improving what you've built? Because it'd be easy to just sit here and kind of coast on the name that you build and kind of just let it be, but I know there's this like grind mentality you have underneath.
It's pure fear. I said, you know, like I said, I don't want some young, hungry, broke Randy Bloomer chasing me. And the passion part of it, I mean, you have to constantly challenge yourself, honestly, because it does get to be a grind. You know, especially in this era, because you have the unemployment's a very difficult situation, and you have supplier chain issues because they were shut down for a year, basically, and trying to catch up. So the people that's feeding you are actually costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know. So there's certain times in my career where I wouldn't have cared. I'd have just dived into it. This stage in my career, I'm like, does this have to happen now? You know? And so you get right back into the ground floor of it, and I have some great people, but they're fairly new. So they've never really been through any hardships like we're experiencing now, where you got to really devise a plan outside the box. And I completely redid my infrastructure this in January. It took me January, February to do it, and it made everyone accountable. And so we have time studies, and we do all these things, every person out there now. And so collecting that information tells you where you're at in your build process. Or you have too many hours in it. Where do you go to? Who do you talk to on that? So during the times like this, you have to get down to the root of the problem, whatever it is. The root of the problem here is, can I control these employees that don't want to work? I cannot. Can I bring them in and give them a chance? Yes, we changed our training process to where they get with the best guy I have, whichever area that's at. And they train them until they're trained. It's not just 2 days, 3 days. If it takes a week, it takes a week. And then, so about 90% of them will wash out after that. It's too hot. It's hotter than that couch you've been sitting on, I promise you. But that's a whole nother story. But that's how you get down to it. You got to figure out, well, what do we got to do to overcome this? The passion part of it, and then how do I keep motivated each year? I just still see things that could be done that no one's willing to do, you know, and there's a lot of stuff. These trailers, man, I mean, they could go, there's certain things you do make them tow so easy, and I just haven't quite figured it out yet. Let me get this thing leveled out and be able to get material in here, and then I will.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of this quote when you were saying that, I was thinking of this quote that you said in another interview. Said, if you have guys on your team that are buying into what you're doing and you're passionate about what you're doing, how can you lose? And like I felt that walking through there, like you have created this culture at Bloomer Trailer. And that is something that's difficult to do in business, to bring people in that want to work and create that culture.
It's very difficult. But it's really not that difficult either. First of all, if you want to beat yourself on the chest and you want to walk out, somebody does something that's annoying, you say, hey, look whose name's on this building. I can't stand those kind of people, first of all. I don't like glory hounds. I don't like talking about myself. I mean, this story's been told I don't know how many times, and still every time I say it, it seems corny to me. But somebody's got to say it, because if it helps one person understand that, shoot, man, you don't have to come from the top shelf. You can be from the bottom shelf and still, how bad do you want it? But when you lead these men, you got to lead them in whether it's good or bad. They got to see a strong front, right? And the only way to do that is include them. You include them and ask their opinions. They may not be able to answer them, but just the fact that you include them and ask them, hey, where's where we're at today? How come well 3 stalled? Or whatever it is. Most people will give you some sort of answer. But sometimes they'll say, I don't know, let me think about that. And they'll come to you later and have a really good analogy of why it is. And then you have a direction. It's just people managing people. No different.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know. I just know for a fact that today's society wants to deal in the noise. And everything's noise outside of a logical thought, right?
Yeah.
So I remember the election, and my guys be coming in just griping and moaning, conspiracy theories going up, and finally you just get enough and say, come in, everybody. Look, you got one vote. Didn't go your way. Tough shit. Get over it.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's as hard as it is. You cannot control that, so why are you worrying about it?
Exactly.
Correct? I mean,
exactly.
It's that easy. I mean, somebody's talking smack about you behind your back. Well, that's too bad. I hate that. It kind of stings a little bit, but you know what? I mean, I'm still kicking.
Yeah.
So throw all the darts you want, you know?
Yeah.
But the other thing is you got to do, too, is if you're wrong, you're wrong. And you have to be able to man up and say, and I've done it. I mean, I've made mistakes where I get so upset with maybe the shop or something like that, and I'll have a meeting in this very room and say, to just chastise the heck out of them, you know. Am I right? Yeah, my premise to it is right. The way I handled it wasn't very good. So I think about it a couple of days and you cool off. You bring them back in and say, look, if you were sitting here, I wouldn't want you to deal with people this way. You know, so you just never lose your humility and the human factor in it.
Right.
No matter how much money you think you're making or how much you're losing, at the end of the day, my neighbor that's from freaking New York down there somewhere, he don't give 2 shits about Randy Bloomer or what I build.
Right.
Right? And he's a nice guy. But do I hate him because he's from New Jersey? Not all of me hates him, seriously. But when I leave here, I'm just a guy.
Right.
Just a guy. I mean, so I promise you, if you lose sight of that and you start thinking you're somebody special, you can use your influence is handy. Like I get on the best hunts there are, right? Because these outfitters will call you because they want to use you to come out there and hunt, so that they can use you, right? Use your name, they come out there. Because that's fun, that part.
At least you're aware of it, though. That's where it gets tricky, when you're not aware of it, and then the ego just kind of gets out of control.
Yeah. My ego's in check, I promise you.
Yeah, I can tell that.
Every day.
You're super humble, very approachable.
Well, talk's cheap. I got to do it.
Well, no, it's not just, that's it. It's not talk. Like anybody can say they aren't those things, but you can get a vibe off of people. You can feel that it's real, and it's one of those things. It takes massive awareness, and constant practice. And that's the other thing. Like yeah, we may lose our shit. You may lose your shit on an employee or something, and then you reflect on it, and you're like, God damn, that probably wasn't the best way. And so it's like this constant practice, and that is, in my opinion, like how we continue to expand awareness, and then catch those thoughts or catch those actions sooner than, and then they start to happen less and less.
Yes.
You know,
create good habits, and
hey,
it's stressful at times, you know, and.
Go ahead.
Once you say it, and you can't take it back.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, you know, you man up and you have the courage to say, you know what, that was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't have handled it that way. It's hard to do, especially if you're still mad.
Yeah, for sure.
Still screwing up. But I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry, I handled it bad.
But that goes back to what you were saying earlier. That is something that is within our control.
Right.
You know, that is one of the things we can't control. There's so many things in this world that are out of our control and that will dictate how we feel or react to situations.
Yeah.
But expanding awareness, you know, you can consciously control that. It's something I practice daily. And there is no perfection of it. Like you can never perfect it, you know? Mm-hmm. So talking about things that are out of our control, and there's a number of things I want to touch on here, but I want to go back to 2016. You get into a plane crash, something out of your control. Going through the recovery and like your mental state throughout that whole thing. Can you talk about that a little bit and where your headspace was?
It wasn't very good. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you something about it. I mean, it was a good hunt, first of all. Go ahead and ask me about the hunt. It was good. Shot it at 540. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I should have teed that up for you.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, I actually had an instructor and I was taking lessons. I was actually going to test when we got back because I'd done all my solos and I'd done all the book work and pre-test and all this stuff. And so one of my instructors had a twin-engine Comanche and, man, it just had it redone. It's a beautiful little plane. Flew out there and did the hunt, picked us up, and I was sitting right front seat. And really, it's supposed to be like a lesson kind of deal, but we got to talking about other stuff. Because the other instructor, whom I'd originally started with, was, he picked us up. And he hadn't flown in a Comanche in a while. And if I throw him under the bus a little bit, it's because it's on purpose. So he wouldn't really listen to the other instructor about the fuel selectors and all this stuff. And he's like, I got 6,000 hours. I didn't know this until later on. So he picks us up in Marfa. When we fly back, I mean, I think he switched tanks, 45 minutes out, which is good. And then we have we cancel flight following. We were 3 miles from the airport, or 5 miles or something like that. I don't even know how far we were. 5 to 10 to cancel flight following. Airport in sight. And the right engine started fluttering. And that little plane's right there. And I'm just like, hey, we got an issue over here. And it finally just quit. Well, as soon as it did, of course, you start sinking. And so that didn't have quite the horsepower to keep you afloat. And so we were trading off all our altitude for airspeed to keep it from stall, and we were probably, probably a mile and a half out. They'd cleared the runway for us, but we weren't going to make the airport because there's big highline wires, and it was just across the highway, really, and probably wasn't more than 500 yards. And so it became inevitable, and then that engine went. And so we're just dead in the air, and so it was nerve-wracking, but I never got upset. Okay, I don't know why. Everybody has these emotions because you're gonna crash, just because you don't have enough airspeed now, and there's a field in front of you, and there's trees at the end of it. There's trees to the left, and the highline's to the right.
How high are you at this point?
At this point, we're probably 1,500 square feet, or 1,500 feet. 1,500, yeah. But we're sinking at, 700 feet a minute. So you're on a pretty steep angle. And so we said, we got to go to this field. And I had the manual out. going through the stuff, safety, because there's every scenario on a plane, you have a solution to it, right? I mean, it has it printed out. You study that stuff and you study it and study it. Well, he wasn't having any of it. He was just like, oh shit. I'm like, finally it got to a point where you're at the critical point, where you're like, we do not want to just belly down, I said, Craig, and he just spaced out. I mean, I'm telling you, this man was like a sheet across his face. And here's this 6,000-hour pilot, and I had a guy in the back, and I said, we're going to crash. You need to get down. So he jumped down behind our seats in a fetal position, and this is the worst thing you could do. So we're coming down about like this.
Who's flying this thing at this point? If that guy's
he's just
blacked out.
Just like this. And he's just, and I can't even get his attention. I just can't get him to do anything. He's flipping switches and it's just doing nothing but he's flipping switches, right? And so I never really got the feeling I was going to die. Some people say that, you have all these things. I never did. I mean, I knew it was going to hurt. But death really never entered my mind. I'm so glad it didn't. But it didn't. And so we came in just like this. Bam. And I hit right there. And I had my foot on the right rudder, trying to get it straight, but it wouldn't level out. And it hit there, and engine came through, and here's the other pedal, and it just took my foot and did that right there and just shot. That's when the bones come out. So I didn't want to burn up. That's the number one concern, I think. So when
So you were conscious through the whole thing, never got knocked out?
Yeah, it didn't knock me out. I wish it would have. It knocked him out. Yeah, it didn't knock me out. No, I mean, you hit so hard. I tell you what it was just surreal. Because at some point, you're thinking, we're literally going to crash right here, And then it's coming down, you see the ground coming, and then it hits, and just all hell breaks loose. It just breaks the back off. And I just didn't want to burn, so I thought, as soon as it broke my door open, broke my seat, radio come out and hit me in the chest, cracked my sternum, bleeding everywhere, and I don't even know where it's from, And so I said, everybody out. And I look, Craig's knocked out, and he broke both his legs. And then the guy in the back, a friend of mine, a big stout guy, didn't get scratched. I'm like, great. That is so good. And I look down, I see a couple bones sticking out of my leg, and I'm like, my leg's broke. I can't get out. So
did you even feel the pain, or do you have so much adrenaline?
No, at that minute I didn't. I really didn't feel it until I tried to step on it, which was, don't ask me why. Nobody knows why in that situation, but I was wanting to get out of there, and I was, I wasn't going to go very far, that's for sure. And he put me out on the wing there, and then you're kind of trying to catch your breath because it kind of knocks your breath out and stuff like that. And then I said, get Craig out of there. And so he reaches over and grabs him, and he's moaning, and he's a bloody mess. He hit the dash. He hit the dash so hard that the autopilot button was inside his head right there. We didn't know it till he was later on in surgery, but John took me to the wing, the rudder, the aileron, and I laid out there, and it wasn't long. We were right by a highway, and Craig was just, man, his face was toast. He hit that dash and the yoke, and it's just laid open everywhere. And at this time, you're still not really thinking, you're not real cognizant of anything at that point. And then I remember a real nice older lady. I was laid out in the back and on that deal and trying to just be still. And this other guy was just in tears. He's like, man. I said, where am I cut? He's like, well, the first one's under your chin. It's laid open to the bone. Your ankle. And I said, is it bad? And he said, yes. I said, all right. And I said, hey, man, we're alive. I remember telling him, I said, settle down, we're good. We're alive. That sounds so grandeur right up until that pain starts coming to you. And then you're like, holy, where's the ambulance at? You know? And I remember this lady comes across, she's real nice, checking on us, older lady, and she's consoling me there, you know. And I barely remember this part, but I remember her looking down at my leg, going, "Oh my God!" I'm like, well, it must be worse than I thought, you know, because you don't really want to look down and see your bones sticking out your leg, right?
Yeah.
But you have to. You have to just keep making sure that that's real, you know. I mean, your inner self says, "Hey, stupid. Quit looking."
You're right. Yeah.
And so it wasn't long before after that we started hearing sirens and stuff, and it was kind of getting dusk about that point. And some good paramedics come over, and I really knew I couldn't get any pain meds until they got me on this helicopter, and it was 10 or 15 minutes out, you know. And so they put the air cast on it. And man, that's when it really started hurting, because they pushed that back together, and it was tough. But I got on there on that. They put me in the ambulance first and said, "Hey, we're waiting on the chopper. We need to get you stabilized and all this kind of stuff, you know." And I said, "All right." I don't know what I said. I'm assuming I said, "All right." They did it, but it was hurting.
Yeah.
Everywhere was hurting. I didn't even know. My knees were hurting, my elbows, my head.
Were you and the pilot in the same chopper going to the hospital?
Mm-mm. No, it was just me, and they come back and got him. So, no, and they were cool. The chopper ladies. I tell you what, she said, "We're going to give you some medicine right now," because I don't know. I figured out what real pain is there, and for the year after, I figured out I could handle pain pretty good. But there comes a point where you just get lightheaded. I mean, and I was wanting to pass out. I mean,
right.
I was like, but I couldn't. Dang it, couldn't pass out. But they, when they got me in there, they started an IV and got some medicine in me, some Dilaudid, I think, and this real cool lady. They had headphones on me, and it's tiny in there. I mean, it's really tight, and you're just like this. They strap you down, you know, and stuff, and she was really cool. And the next thing I noticed was the fact that my nose was itching so bad, unbelievable. And so I told her, she said, "You're all right?" And I said, "I hate to tell you this," and by this time the pain meds were taking place, you know, doing their thing. And so it was like I started feeling some relief, and she scratched my nose like that, and I said, "Thank you." So all the way to the hospital, every once in a while she reached out and scratched me. She was really cool. And from then on, I mean, they get us to the hospital and take us in there, and they had a multi-car pileup same time. And so Craig and I are in this room, and he's just right over there, and we're on pain meds at this point, and I was just bleeding all over the damn place. I mean, off the table is a stainless table, you know, and it's just, I'm looking down and thinking, God, they need to stop this. But they had all these other people too. You hear them screaming and stuff. And I looked over at Craig and I said, "Man, you look like shit." He said, "You don't look very good yourself." But they came in and they tried to set it, and they said it's going to hurt for 15 seconds because the pain meds are wearing off. And I said, "Go ahead." And so I put my other foot up here and held on, and it's about 45 seconds later, they couldn't get it back in place. And they said, "We're going to have to do something more than this, you know." And this guy was coming in, sewing this up, and elbow and knee and wherever else. I don't even know where it was. Because the time I was coherent enough to know was later on when they were already out, basically, stitches right. So it was a fog for a while. But I'll tell you the weirdest thing, the good and the bad. That sucked, every bit of it. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, right? Your family, told, terrible. Because they're in South Texas, right? My wife's down there at Warrenton. My son is at some kind of baptism deal for some girl or whatever. I don't know what it was. Well, I didn't have any cell service, and they didn't either. And so send word. This is the grapevine of the Western industry. They're the greatest group ever. So through the channels, they find out where Jake is and go get him out of this church. He's up there. Kim, up there. They don't. And the news reports are saying, I'm dead, decapitated, and all this shit, you know? Shit. Yeah. And I don't remember them even coming in, honestly. But they did, and I woke up the next morning and I had this leg was really wrapped up and it had pins sticking out of it and stuff, you know, and a halo, they called it. And I'm like, golly, you know, this is terrible. This sucks.
Right.
So they kept me there just 2 days and then sent me home. No antibiotics, you know, nothing. And we get home and Sage said, this thing's bleeding. He said, it's not supposed to be bleeding. So he called Tandy Freeman, and Tandy said, get him to the Scott and White Hospital. And so that's where we went, Scott and White, and they come in and take all the bandages off and stuff. And that was the first time I really saw it. And it was a mess, you know, and I'm like, God. I asked him specifically, I said, am I going to lose this foot? Because there wasn't much left to work with, right? I mean, It was pretty bad. And so they said, well, we're going to take you into surgery in the morning, first thing. I guess this was in the morning by this time. It was early morning. The coolest doctor, we happen to kind of know the same people, and he's the head trauma surgeon up there. They tried to draw fluid out of that ankle to see if it was infected, and couldn't get any fluid out of it. And the next morning, I was in my first surgery, and it was bad enough he needed to work on this side, but he went through this side because your ligaments and tendons, all this stuff's messed up. And he said that what had happened was this bone, when they tried to set it again, they put these huge bolts through there, right, to hold it, but it trapped my tendon in between. That's why it wouldn't go back into place. So they had to take care of all that. And I guess it was a week later, they went in the other side, and then 3 weeks after that, and then a year after that, and then 3 weeks ago. Fast forward 5 years, you know. But the good part about it was, the bright side is I figured out, well, you know, I'm not inhuman. I can be killed, you know. I can, and I'm not going to say it was just life-altering thing, but it dang sure was a wake-up call, because when you're sitting on your butt and can't put weight on your foot for 6 months, and you're going back in constantly, and I was so antsy to get, you know, to do something. I mean, it just wasn't my style, right?
Right.
And it was a pain in the butt for all my family too. I mean, they were all helping. Sage was home from the rodeo, so he stayed there all the time. I can't believe it. He would. I mean, you can't even get up to pee.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
You can't get your own glass of water. You can't. It was terrible. So taught me a little bit of humility there, you know.
Oh yeah.
A little tough lesson. I mean, is there any other way it could have got through to me besides that?
Well, yeah, that's a hell of a reminder. But yeah, I think that's something I think about every single day. I keep a coin in my pocket. It says Memento Mori, and on the back side of the coin it says you could leave life right now. As morbid as that sounds, it's a good reminder, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know, you alluded to it a little bit, but like, did it change your perception or your perspective and outlook and how you go about your life day to day now?
Absolutely. You know, I think anybody that's in that situation, there's probably a lot of people with a lot worse off than I was. I didn't know the one thing, that I had a serious concussion. You know, I had some, and I had to do a few of those CAT scan stuff, and they would find some blood pockets and this and that. They said, hey, I think it's going to be all right. I think it'll go away with some medication and all this stuff. But for 7 months, it was just like, I mean, you're just kind of foggy. You know?
Yeah.
And I thought, man, is this as good as it's ever going to be? And all these, you do have negative thoughts when you're there by yourself, you know, and your body will tell you, you know, hey, this is as good as it is, man. And I mean, you think about giving up sometimes, you really do, and then something always drives you back, whatever the circumstances are. But you always put on a brave face, but deep down inside, you're just
It's a different story, right?
Yeah, you're miserable, but you have to take something away from it. Mm-hmm. And I did put it put a new, I guess it put a new angle on how important it is to be healthy and how important it is to actually, escape something like that.
Yeah.
So that you're able to do your functions again. And I think you just, I don't know, I think you treat people better. I would hope so anyway. I never did really treat anybody bad, but it was just one of those things. For about a year after, I never saw a poor day. I mean, I was just happy just to be around, right?
Yeah.
And I was so anxious to get here, and I wasn't released to drive. So I'd take my Ranger, and it had cab and AC and stuff, and I'd drive it to work. I'd put my leg across here, and I'd drive it 1 foot, and which really, that led to some really nice features on these Rangers. I figured out that when you have to hit the ditch because the gravel truck's behind you doing about 50, then it wants to tilt. 2 things that's going to be really hard to explain to my wife how I rolled it. Second thing is the suspension's not worth a dang. So you send it in the shop and you get a new suspension on it.
Yeah, right. Man, that's a cool story, a cool way to look at it, I should say. Not a cool story.
I only told it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people get something out of it because no matter what we go through, we always have a choice on how we view, and that is our reality, essentially, like the lens and the perception in which we view whatever it is we're going through, whatever hardship. I mean, every human being is dealing with something, struggles or challenges in some way. But I think it's important to remember we can choose how we look at it.
Right.
And for me, it's like, where's the gratitude? What's the good? Well, I'm searching for. It's a lot easier to find when you're looking for it.
Right, for sure.
Because by nature, by default, the negative chatter wants to come up.
Yeah, you got to fight it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always said it's like the little angel devil on your shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do that. Yes, you can. No, you can't. Yes, you can.
Yeah, and that dialogue never ends. Like, it's just nonstop.
No, but once you get past it a little bit, and you get your body under control and you're through with concussions and all this stuff,
yeah,
then it's different. Then it's like, okay, now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to let that one thing, that was pure pilot error, right? I mean, when the FAA and TSA or whatever the hell it was kept calling me wanting a statement and stuff, and I was rude to them. I said, I just want to get well. I don't care. I'm not looking to sue anybody. They're all worried about, especially these attorneys calling me, you have just a lay down lawsuit here. And I'm like, look, it wasn't the plane's fault, and he switched those tanks. When he switched them to empty tanks is what he did. So we had 16 gallons of usable fuel on board when we crashed. Didn't know it till the report came out, but 100% pilot error. He lost his license and all this stuff. But
man, well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I'll shift gears. There's no segue out of that one, but
good.
We'll shift gears back to some business stuff, and I'd like to know, like, what does Randy Bloomer do when you get maybe overwhelmed or get unfocused in some way? Like, how do you get your mind back right?
Pretty simple for me. Simple guy, but when I really need to do something like that, as I said, I'll go get my horse and I'll ride through them cows the same way every time. And you'd be surprised. I mean, horses are therapeutic, and people find them in different ways. Maybe they go drive a Tesla or something. I don't know. But for me, it's just getting back to the basic principles that guide me, and how thankful are you? Is this something that you're going to let define you at this point, or are you going to overcome it? Or because sometimes, you have a week or two in a row where it's just constant revolving door in my office and 15, 18 calls a day on your phone, and and they're expecting you to have an answer every time. You got to have a clear mind, and sometimes it's just not there. So that's what I do. I de-stress, and that's what I do to this day, and it helps me. And I don't know how, but horses are therapeutic. You know they are.
Oh yeah.
And people across the world know that.
Yeah.
And they do. They love them. Horses bring people I met from different countries. We all have that one thing in common, is that's the fact that we love horses, you know, and we like good horses, and so it's a bonding point no matter what.
Right.
But that's how I do it. I mean, I have faith too. I have a lot of faith, and it's not just me. I did it. You know, I've tried it my way several times, and that didn't work very good. So you get to a point where you're like looking for answers, right?
Yeah.
I never was involved in a religion, you know. I mean, I wasn't raised with it, and then I moved up to my dad's. That they're all into it, right? And it just kind of has a tendency to cram it down your throat. Well, first thing you do is when you graduate high school, you leave the next week, and you go back, and then I never really got any answers because I really didn't know how to look. But the thing I discovered, it's not really about any religion, because there's 5,000 different religions out there, and each one of those people in those religions fervently believe that's the only one there is, right? Well, I'm not going to ever argue about religion or politics because there's no ending to it, right?
Right.
So I think it's more just about whatever relationship you establish with whoever it is you establish. And that's just, and I do use that as a guidepost. I mean, I think you have to, if you don't have something, you know, to keep you morally correct and ethically and all this stuff, then the standards you set,
Yeah.
then you have nothing. It's like with no law, there's chaos, right? Kind of the same thing with business, in my opinion.
Right.
But you got to get squared away in your mind right. You ever had something happen and say, I wonder why this happened to me, it's so good.
Yeah.
You know, you have things happen to you all the time, say, that sucks, why do I like that? But sometimes things happen that are so good, you're like, man, am I worthy of this, you know?
Right.
It's more than you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so you take the good with the bad and stay your ground.
Yeah.
You know, just don't tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. It's a lot easier to tell the truth than it's a lie. It's just the problem is most people don't like to hear the truth a lot of times, right?
Yeah. Especially if it's about them.
Yeah, for sure.
What is, along those same lines, like what is a mantra, maybe a quote, or just like something to help you stay in line, to guide you into what you're talking about?
I used to, when I was coming through all this plane wreck stuff, and I was looking for encouragement, you know, and I love a lot of things. My mom taught me a poem when I was a kid called If by Rudyard Kipling, okay? And it's a long poem, but she made me memorize it. My mom was like that, and I always thought it was stupid, you know? I would have to learn this stuff. But if you really look at it today as an adult and you see it, it's all about being a man. You know, the turmoils and the ins and outs of what it takes to be a man. And so I actually sitting at home during that time read it. Don't know why. I really was not thinking, I'm looking for encouragement, I'm going to read this poem. I don't know why it dawned on me. Maybe I was just in a weird state. I don't know. But I was like, wow. And then I had this change holder on my credenza there in our closet, and it was just courage is being scared to death but saddling up anyway. Well, I was a lot of times in my career, you know, but courage, not blind courage, but courage that whatever the decision is, you're going to stand firm to it because it's what you believe, right? Doesn't necessarily mean everybody will believe it. It just means that that's what I really believe. But I know that you have to live each day with courage, you know, because it's, as I said, the world will try to beat you up.
Right.
And that's what I always go back to. The self-belief, don't let anybody kid you. There's nobody confident all the time. You know, just not. It's impossible. It's not a human emotion to where you're always right.
Yeah.
And so you got to learn to dealing with the adversity is a lot harder than dealing with, the good times.
Yeah.
So but once you learn how to deal with it, nobody's going to die from it.
Mm-hmm.
You might get your ego bruised and it might cost you some money,
Yeah.
but you ain't going to make it again. So lesson learned, right?
Exactly.
So I love that saying, though. I have a lot of sayings. I mean, I like motivational stuff,
Uh-huh.
And so the lion and gazelle deal is one of my favorites,
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Do you know it by heart?
Hmm?
The lion and the gazelle, do you know it?
Yeah.
You mind sharing?
No. It's just simple. And the one I have is just shows a lioness laying in the tall grass. And it says every morning a gazelle wakes up and it knows it's got to be faster than the fastest lion or it'll get eaten.
Mm-hmm.
And every day a lion wakes up, says it's got to be faster than the slowest gazelle or it won't eat. So it doesn't matter whether you're a lion or a gazelle, you wake up, you better hit the ground running.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. I saw that, I don't know, a few years ago, and when I did, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That one hit me.
Yeah, it's
That
true.
one hit me. If you could go back in time, Randy, this is a hypothetical question, but if you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, knowing what you know now, what advice do you give to yourself?
20 years, I would say that as soon as you can, you need to take control of your own destiny, and I needed to be 100% independent at that time, and there's a way to do that, but I didn't learn it till later on. And I would probably say team rope less, spend more time with your kids, because it's a pretty selfish sport. Because my wife you couldn't drag her to a team rope. When we were young, it was different.
Right.
But then you got your kids and they're in school and they have athletic events or whatever it is, and if you miss one of them because of a roping or something, you just feel terrible. I did. And so the one thing that crash did do is my kids were already grown by then, but I didn't miss hardly anything from them. And it was weird because there's people around you that don't share the same feeling, and they want you to go here or there, and you're like, no, I'm going to go watch my son's Little League game or my daughter's deal or whatever it is. Going to all the football games where she's a cheerleader and I didn't know a soul on the team. There I am, that dad sitting up there. But it was just, I don't know, those things come along as you age and as you kind of learn what you're supposed to be doing. Your job when you have kids is to be a parent.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you can be a part-time parent. It means you got to be active all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you, when I finally had the courage to turn people down or not do this, then it was a lot better for everybody because I wasn't so selfish.
That's a good question. Like, how have you gotten better at saying no to certain things? Whether it's an invite to an event or something, like, how have you gotten better at saying no?
Well, I would tell you that you need to make a really good excuse, but then I would say that's not right. I've been fortunate to be invited to a lot of things, a lot of them which, and I'm not going to name any of them, but if I did, it would make more sense to you. But I never felt the need to be included in certain things that didn't fit my moral compass or my ethics, or my morals. So, and you turn them down, it's prestigious, and everybody you knows that has some clout in our industry does it. And you choose not to, it's pretty lonely. They quit inviting you after a while.
Right.
And so you got to be able to say, well, the high road is lonely sometimes, but the low road's packed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stay on the high road and I'm not going to sell out.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, you make the commitment to yourself that you're going to bust your ass. You want to succeed, and you're going to succeed, and you're going to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But and then I figure out as you get older that was the right decisions to make.
Right.
Because I don't whatever legacy I leave my kids, it's going to be a good one or it's going to be an embarrassing one. And I never want to embarrass my kids, ever. So, when you don't come from a family background with really solid footing, you have to learn your way through there one slippery slope at a time, and it takes some people like me that's hard-headed longer to figure it out. But when you figure it out, then you're not going to bend for anybody. Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
So I think it comes from that deal within we're talking about again. It's what do you stand for?
Right.
Who are you?
Right.
So.
Right. No, I love that. With anybody that has attained any level of success, like people may look today and see Randy Bloomer and Bloomer Trailers at what it is now. But they don't see, like we see the highlight reel of the sports guys, the athletes, but we don't see all of the shit they had to go through, all the failures and overcoming a failure. Do you have one particular, like a favorite failure that maybe you had to go through to set you up for a later success?
Yes. Have 1 through 10. No, I'm kidding. The worst and best part of my life was during the recession, when we had that recession. You were probably junior high, knowing you then, but
2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Freshman in high
in the
school.
trailer business, you go from being flush. How old were you?
Freshman in high school. No, I'm playing. I was out of college at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during that time, the world shut down, basically, right? And so you're just gliding along here, doing well, and the next thing you know, you've got nothing to build, right? So, and it's just everything that you had in your store is just leaving, writing checks, right? And there's no income.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, we're not going to make it, and I think there was 5 companies at the time, trailer manufacturing companies that went under. A few living quarters companies went under, and 60% of all the dealers went under, So it was a tough time. And honestly, to this day, you have to put on a brave face, for your employees. I didn't want to lay them off. I really don't know how we got through it. I honestly don't. But I know that once we did, we were in a really good position in the industry. And I learned a ton about just getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, it's those relationships again, the networking, that the worst of times we built 2 of the biggest trailers we've ever built, the most expensive. And I have a friend named Randy Brooks in Utah that I got to know real well. And he used to own a company called Barnes Bullets, and wound up selling to Remington. But Randy was an experienced business guy and just a positive guy too. And man, I'd call him and he'd take my call every time, I was grateful. I just needed somebody to say, hey, am I doing this right,
Right.
Well, and in his defense, he would always try to help me, but he hadn't been through that either, right? So I would say the recession taught me something about myself that I don't know any other way I could have learned it.
Right.
And that is, somehow I can get through it.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's number 1.
Yeah. No, I love it. And that's like overcoming those challenges. That's what builds the calluses. That's what the growth is painful. Like when you're going through it, it really sucks. But coming out on the other end of it, there is no hack. You have to pay that price.
Right. Man, you talk about prepared. You're a whole lot more prepared than I was.
Well, I don't know about that.
You told me a lot of stuff about myself that I don't know where you read it.
Well, that's what's fun to me about this show, like being able to do the research on people that I'm not going to have somebody on that maybe has a name just for ratings or not going to happen. Like I'm genuinely interested in every single person that I sit down with, And so the reason for that is because I get to do the research, because I'm in this constant search of just answers to this endless list of questions that I have, And so I look to people like a Randy Bloomer. I want to know how you did what you did, and still doing, for that matter. So it's in my best interest and the listeners' it's for the listeners too that listen and want to know stories from like a Randy Bloomer, and so that's the reason. And yeah, it does get daunting at times.
Embarrassing, kind
Well,
of. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's hard to be honest and tell the people that there's been so many times where you really did suck, but what do you want to define you? That's where it all boils down to is that. I don't know how.
Well, that's something that comes up on this show continuously, and it's like something I think about a lot. It's you're gonna suck, It's like starting anything new, you're gonna suck, and this microwave society that we live in, we want instant results.
Right.
I'm guilty of it. I'll admit it. But I have to consciously remind myself, like the people that have, again, like we see the highlight reel, we see those people that are at the top. It didn't just happen overnight. Like they spent a lot of days, months, years with consistency, just dedicated to their craft, whatever it may be. I sit down with rodeo guys and musicians, entrepreneurs. It doesn't just happen. And people, like I have real estate back home, and people want to know what's the secret. What's the secret to buying real estate or being a success? It's not. Like I can't give you there are some formulas for the business side of it, but it's almost like that part you can't teach someone, that drive and that mindset. You can be around, you can surround yourself with the right people that kind of rubs off on you.
Right. Well, you just can't quit. If you have a goal, then I explain it this way to my kids and the youth kids and stuff. The good thing about life, it's all of your life is, even you, Mike, is a series of chapters, right? Some of them is really good, some of them is not very good.
Yeah.
But the ability that we have is that life gives us the privilege of closing a chapter anytime we want and starting a new one.
Yeah.
And so once you close that chapter, keep it closed. You can't trip over stuff going forward by dragging stuff up from the past. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So,
and there is no place, there is no destination that you're going to get to, and like you will have to achieve everything that you would have wanted to achieve. And then for some silly reason, like I thought there was a place, and
well, we all do, yeah.
And I've learned that it is not like this. Life is a journey, and it is full of chapters, know. And so when I realized that, and I've said this many times on the show, like it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, because I'm gonna fuck up, like I'm gonna mess some stuff up, and like that's okay, like that's cool, and people are gonna judge, people are gonna talk shit, whatever it is, that's out of my control,
right.
And so I've learned to just be okay with it, and really know my intention. That it comes back to that. And if I'm okay with why I'm doing something, I'm okay with whatever anybody else says.
Right.
And you said it earlier. Most of the time, the people talking shit are sitting at home doing nothing. So why put any weight into what somebody else says?
Well, your generation. Your generation.
I'm not a millennial, Randy. I'm not
okay, good. I don't know what the symbol is for your age group, but no, the best and worst thing we've ever had, was the advent of social media, and then I was telling my son one day, there was a deal, and I might get this wrong probably. Which one is you take a picture and do something and it disappears?
Oh, is it Snapchat?
Okay, Snapchat. And he was talking about Snapchat. And I said, I hate Snapchat. And he said, why do you hate Snapchat? And I said, because people can be as dumb as they want to be, as ignorant as they want to be, and they have no fear of retribution because it's gone. Because that teaches you nothing. It teaches you to be a complete imbecile for that minute, but nobody knows it because it goes away, except whoever you sent it to, right? I like that part, because then you take away, again, the law. You take away principles, you take away boundaries, and that part of it I don't like. The greatest thing about social media is you can hit so many people from a business perspective and get whatever message is is that you want to sin, and you can touch a lot of people very quickly.
Yeah.
So I think originally it was probably designed for business to have free advertising, basically, right? And it's turned into a lot of different things. It gives people that have no business having a voice to have a voice, right? Because some of the stuff they say just embarrasses me because it's so stupid.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to write it, it's going to be there. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. It's like
before you write something so stupid.
It's like a loaded gun, right? You can use it for good or you can use it for bad.
Right, exactly, yeah.
This is something that can be defined many different ways. I'd like to know your definition or how you determine what a success is.
I think there's a lot of different kinds of success, you know, but I don't think success is achieved until your life is over. And then you go back and look and see what your legacy was, what you left, how your next generation, your kids and your grandkids, how are they, you know? And success is, if you want to do it in dollars and cents, I mean, it's easy to gauge that, but that doesn't, there's a lot of dumbasses with a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dumbasses that are broke, right? I mean, it just is. So I don't really let the dollar signs, you know, dictate whether that's successful or not. If somebody does good in a career, whether it's in the horse industry or the rodeo industry or whatever it is, then you got to give them kudos because they earned it. But that's success in that. Doesn't mean it's success in life.
Right.
Right. So I just always go back to the basic principles, you know. I mean, success in life is the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I've had no money most of my life. And then you achieve something, and if you let it change you, would I rather have no money or some money? Well, I'd rather have some money, right? I mean, I don't know anybody to be honest and say, no, I'd rather be broke right now, you know.
Right.
But it's always better if you feel like you've earned it somehow.
Yeah.
Success, that's a tough one because so many different avenues
It is.
to go to.
Yeah, it definitely is, and there's a number of different ways to answer it. But I think, for me anyway, like success was going to school, getting a good job, getting paid, making money. To me now, that's not success.
Well, what is it to you then?
To me,
yeah,
success is doing what you love to do, sticking with whatever that is. If people find value in it, I'm not going to diminish money. Like, I like to make money. I don't feel guilty saying that.
well, you shouldn't. No.
You know, I don't feel guilty saying that at all. I want to make as much as I can, but success to me is doing what I love to do, providing value to others. AJ LeGrand, he's a musician, was on the show yesterday. He said, help it. What do you say, Andy?
I would rather help someone than win.
Yeah, he said, I'm more interested in helping than winning, right? And that seems like a kumbaya saying, but man, when he said it, it really hit me, and that's why I do this show. It's to provide value to as many people as possible. And yeah, like, I'm no different than anybody. I'm human. I get caught up in the likes and the follows and all of that. But I have to remind myself that's not success, really. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're having growth, and okay, but then I have to look back, like, what was my intention? The growth is indicative of my intention. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I will dissect it and just keep going through this rabbit hole.
I don't know if there's any finishing answer to it. You know, it's. I think if you ask 10 people, they give you a different idea of success. You know, but
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to look at success, and like you said, graduating college, getting going into real estate and stuff, and considering that success. It was at that juncture in your life.
Yeah,
you know?
Doing what I wanted to do. It was free. That's essentially it. It's freedom. Having the freedom to do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Because I was a drug rep for a long time before I got to that place, because I thought that's what I had to do. But realizing that I do have a choice and that I can do these other things that I really enjoy doing, and I can provide jobs for people.
You bet.
To me, that's a success.
It is, yeah. And because there's nothing selfish in any of the stuff you said.
Yeah.
You know, the better you do, the more people that you're going to get, that you're going to help. So I think there's a lot of credence in that, helping people. Mm-hmm. I'd agree with you 100%.
I can tell you what it's not, and what I thought it was for a long time was money and fame, notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
That may come along with the success that I'm talking about, like doing what you truly love to do. Like that's the byproduct.
Right.
You know, but I don't think that's the definition. Okay, I got just a few more. We'll roll into what we now call the slow fire round, brought to you by Ghostwood Distilling Company. It used to be called the rapid fire, but it wasn't so rapid. So
I'll make it rapid.
okay.
The answer, the first one's yes, second one's no.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
Just trying to tee it up. Can I have $1 million? You just said the answer.
You take a check? Did you
Is that like the guarantee you gave that guy?
take a 2-party out of state check signed by a known felon?
Yeah. All right. If you could go back to any time period, for 1 week, what time period would that be?
It would be... Actually, everybody wants to go back. I'm going to say it was my post-crash, a year later when I could actually walk and get around. I promised my son I'd take him hunting somewhere, anywhere he wanted, for his graduation. And I was tardy on that because I had that incident, right? Mm. And so he wanted to go to Africa, and we'd been a few times and we love it. He had never been. And so being able to take him and spend, 3 weeks hunting every day in the middle of nowhere and letting him see the other side of life that is poverty, pure poverty, mm-hmm. and being around him, and it changed his perspective on life too. And I enjoyed my daughter's wedding. I thought that was special. Mm-hmm. That was a time you could kind of relive. My wife and I, 40 years. I mean, we've had so many fun times during that time, And
right.
I don't know. It'd be hard to single out just one. Growing the business, I would say that was not the funnest time. Yeah. Recession wasn't, but there's been so many times in between that's just been great, that I can't really single it down to one.
What about like any time period? It doesn't have to be in your lifetime. Like this can be at any time. And your answer doesn't have to change. I just want to make sure you understood the question. It can be during any time period.
Any time
for 1 week.
Oh, well, I know I'd have to go back in the 1880s, I mean, I bet a lot of people say that. I'm not sure where I would have been a gun.
I haven't had that answer much.
Really?
That's my answer.
I don't know if I would have been a gunfighter or a gambler or the guy that was shot first on the street. I really don't know. But I think that it was one of those times where in that age the strong did prevail. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they just did. And so it was a dog-eat-dog kind of world. And I think that I would have embraced that time. And just seeing, I might be the first one shot. But I think that would be a fun time.
Yeah, I agree with you. What is a book that you either gift to other people or that you have reread most?
I got several books. I like to read books sometimes. I would say the most recent book that I've read was the book Trey Gowdy wrote, and it's all about asking why, and it's a good book. It's a good read too.
What's the name of it?
Doesn't Hurt to Ask. And he's obviously a shrewd guy and sharp guy, and it tells you about court battles and stuff that he's gone through, that the simple questions that he asked made the most difference.
Right.
Yeah.
I love questions. Like I'm just hyper curious by nature, and so I'm gonna definitely.
I've already read that twice. There's so much stuff in it, so much data.
Yeah.
That I just can't process all. I read it in Sonoma, and then I read it when I got back.
Right on. Are you a reader, or do you listen to them?
Like no, I read it old school.
Yeah.
With cheaters, yes. There's a lot of good old books. I mean, but I used to read all the Westerns, back in when I was young, and
Yeah.
at the time, you know, it was the Sackett's and all these different books.
Yeah.
And it was a series, and that dates me so bad. but yeah, I like those kind of books. I like history books too. You know, and most of it's about American West. I like Colt single actions and Winchesters. You know, and I like to read up on those. I like stuff with significance.
Right on. What if you didn't have Bloomer trailers and you were a professional athlete, what sport would you play?
If I could play any of them,
Yeah.
I would probably play baseball. I was decent at baseball, and
Middle infield.
I was infield, shortstop,
Yeah.
and it would not be the NBA. I promise you. I told my kids, look, your parents have been lying to you all these years. You cannot do anything that you want to do. Anything you say your mind to. My daughter's 5 foot, 5'2", whatever she is. I would never tell her she could play in the WNBA.
Man, we had this conversation on the way in today.
Did you?
Like 30 minutes before we showed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to say I would sure try to play baseball, and of course, somewhere along the way, I would have continued to rope and try to make the NFR.
Yeah.
I would never had the drive to do it when I was young because I was always kind of. Doesn't matter how much talent you have or don't have. It's just I was guided toward a different path, you know, and I wasn't willing to give up that path.
Yeah.
To sacrifice everything, try to make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Gotcha. And that's damn sure a hard road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question, my friend. If you could have metaphorically speaking, if you could have a billboard to get a message out to millions of people, what does your billboard say?
Man, this could be.
It can be a quote, it can be a mantra, something you heard, any of the above.
My daughter wrote a book called Kindness is Key. And I would probably have to say that. Because as I said earlier, kindness does not distinguish weakness. All right? It just doesn't. Some of the strongest guys I know, special forces guys, are the kindest guys you'll ever meet. And they can kill you in 9 different ways. So that doesn't make them a sissy. All right? So I think it's overlooked, and man, just everybody's all wrapped up in color of skin. I never taught my kids to see color when they were raised up. And they're so willing to fight. The next thing would be shut up and listen. But I wouldn't say that. But you know what I mean? It's just like, why are we hating one another right now? They don't even have a dog in the fight, and I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't care if you're gay or a lesbian or whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just life, right? We all got to live it.
100%.
But don't cram it down our throats. Just be happy with what you got.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tough society right now.
I agree with you 100%, man. And this game of life that we humans live can be so simple. And we complicate the shit out of it.
We do, don't we?
You know?
That's a great point. And I love that point. I do.
Yeah.
It's gonna give you what you ask for if you're willing to give to get it. But that noise we was talking about, man, you have to know if you really want to find the answer you're looking for. There's certainly some news station or some radio station that you can find that will agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
But that's being closed-minded. I mean, we need to be open-minded and say, maybe I don't want to think about that, you know, and that's an honest deal. I don't turn on the news a lot of times now because it's opinions. Well, you know what they say about opinions, right? I'm not going to regurgitate that, but, man, we all got them. And it's just, there's no, an opinion, it's like I said about religion. I don't argue religion or politics because there's no ending to it. It's a argument that's been going on since the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that, why would you ingest any time in that?
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
I got rid of cable TV about 2.5 years ago because I don't tune into any of it.
You're smart.
I don't want to tune into any of it. You know?
I don't need anybody to piss me off worse.
Yeah.
I got plenty of people to do that.
Yeah. Randy, thank you again, man. I've enjoyed the shit out of having you on. Thank you for inviting us down to your place here in Salado. Tell the folks that are listening where they can, if they want to know more about Randy Bloomer or Bloomer Trailers, website, Instagram, social medias, where can they find you guys?
We're on all those. I don't have Facebook personally, but the company does, and it's active. Instagram, same thing, it's active. What was the other one you said?
Website?
Website, Bloomer Trailers, yes. And we're redoing it right now, so it's going to be, when we're done, it's going to be real good. We've been in meetings for 2 months, so it's going to be launched this year, mid-year.
Right on.
You should be the one answering that question about social media. You found stuff about me that I don't even remember saying ever, but I'm sure I did. So wherever you found all that stuff at, that's where you find it.
Tell folks, and I'm curious to know this one too, what's next? You know, the name of these trailers is the evolution, right? And so they're constantly evolving, and you don't have to get into details, but within the next 3 to 5 years, what do you see coming down the pipeline?
Well, I can tell you what I'm looking at right now is titanium. I'm looking at implementing titanium in a lot of places. You know, strong, if not stronger than what we're doing today. The machining part of it and stuff is kind of the great equalizer. What kind of machining are you going to have to cut it? But I think there's a day coming where you're going to see titanium on these trailers, which we could save 1,000 pounds is the way I got it figured, up to 1,500 pounds, and still have the same structure. So that's one way I'm going. One of these days, I'm going to do something on the axles that actually help stop the trailer. Have you ever seen magnets in use? You have, you said. All right, so magnets are something that if you can use the polarity of a magnet, they use them on these trains, these high-speed trains. It's a series of that. I don't know how to do it. I just know that there's got to be a way somehow. I don't know what it is, but as far as I'll probably change this trailer in the next 3 to 5 years, as soon as I can put it all together, you know. I don't know what I'll call it yet, but we'll see.
Right on.
I have several pieces of titanium right now, so that's kind of where I'm headed. Getting into the next generation.
Sweet. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I've already told you that I've got a Bloomer trailer in mind. Like, that is going to be my next purchase. So I'm set on living quarters, and I'm set on it being a Bloomer. So
Appreciate that.
hopefully it's sooner than when you come out with the titanium thing, you know. But I look forward to everything that you guys have coming out, and thank you for what you do. You know, because I think what you guys have is the best on the road right now when it comes to horse trailers. So I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you for what y'all are doing.
I appreciate that. I do. Sincerely. It's very flattering. We're going to keep working.
You bet. We're out.